My name is Joyce Yarbrough, and I'm known as the Silhouette Lady. Well, when I was growing up, I always wanted to be an artist. It was either that or an acrobat. You know, I liked to watch the circus, the circus on TV at my grandparents' house, and I liked that. But I also watched Hallmark Hall of Fame, so being an artist has always been part of what I wanted to be. I had to convince my dad I could make a living as an artist, because he said, you got to take secretarial, you know, you got to take typing and all that, because you got to learn, you got to be able to make a living, and I don't know if you can make a living as an artist. So that's why when I was in high school, I took typing so I could do secretarial work. I attended University of Missouri at Columbia and studied education as well as art. And then I got to fulfill my dream of working at Hallmark. A recruiter came to Columbia, and I talked to him and went to Kansas City, showed him my portfolio, and ended up working in Hallmark Cards. And while I was at Hallmark, I continued my education at Kansas City Art Institute. When I first started doing artwork, I really liked doing people. People have always been one of my favorite subjects to do. And I saw silhouettes being done at Disney World or Disneyland, and always thought, well, I bet I could do that. And eventually I tried it, and it was something I could do. And because there weren't a lot of people who did it, it became a major part of my art. But for me, originally, it was another form of portraiture, because I did pastel portraits, oil portraits, watercolor portraits. And so this was just another medium to do portraits. But, you know, there weren't very many people doing it. So it was like, oh, okay. And then I also met some friends of mine who were very much into historical reenactments and everything. They said, you need to come to some of these historical reenactments. And they got me all dressed up in the historic costumes and got me to go to several of those events. And that led to another long-term commitment to the historical aspect of silhouettes. And today I still go to schools and talk to children, to school children, about history of silhouettes. I really enjoy doing the historical aspect of the silhouettes, and whether it's going to Silver Dollar City or to Renaissance Fair. I've done Renaissance fairs in Florida, Colorado, Missouri, and it was a lot of fun. I went to visit my hometown one time, and the doctor that I had when I was a little girl came by, and he said, you haven't changed a bit. You're still playing dress up and cutting out paper dolls. Because I really do like that aspect also of the historical events where I get to dress up in costume. Silhouettes were really popular in the 1700s, and more George Washington's time and Ben Franklin's time. But there were artists that would travel around, cut silhouettes of people, and they'd set up a little shop in a town, or they might barter with the family. They stayed with the family and would cut silhouettes. Silhouettes actually go back to Renaissance times. They went by different names. At that time they were called shades or shadow portraits. And the silhouettes or shadow portraits were very popular because they were inexpensive. If someone wanted to have an oil painting done, well, that was quite a lengthy sitting, and also it was not inexpensive. And the silhouettes were less expensive and could be done in just a few minutes. I cut silhouettes of people, pets, and plants. So each one has a little different process. When I do people, they sit in front of me, I look at them, and I cut out I just draw with my scissors. I cut freehand. I don't draw anything first. So I'm often challenged by children who are pretty wiggly, don't sit still. I've done parties where people are drinking and it's hard to get them to, to stop talking long enough for me to actually cut out their silhouette because they're busy, they're not sitting as still, just like the children. But I have my techniques about keeping them to sit quiet. I have the parents sit in front of them or else hold them on their lap, read them a story, and that usually keeps them fairly occupied. They don't have to be perfectly still, they just have to sit still enough for just a few minutes for me to cut them, because I do it fairly quickly. When I do pets, I usually do from photos. I used to do those from life also, but that took me so long. I could have cut 10 silhouettes in the time it took me to do one dog. And a friend of mine told me one time, you really should quit doing dogs at art fairs because it takes up too much time. So I took her advice and now I do pets from photographs. Except one lady caught me off guard one time. I was in an art show and she comes along and said, "Do you do dogs?" "Oh, sure, just bring me a picture of your dog." Well, she unzips her coat and out comes this little bitty tiny dog, and I had to do it right then and there. But mostly I do pets from photographs. I had done a few silhouettes of plants and trees, because I do a lot of art shows that are outdoors, and if I'm sitting around and I don't have a person to cut out, frequently I'll see a flower or a tree and I'll cut out a flower or a tree. And I showed a few of these to him and he goes, "You ought to do more of those." So pretty soon I started doing more of those. They started selling. It's like, wow, I have a whole new subject matter for my silhouettes. So I started doing botanical silhouettes. Then I did a few, I've done butterflies and dragonflies, and so now I say it's more nature-oriented rather than just the botanical silhouettes. Well, I turned a historical art form into a contemporary art form by doing my botanical silhouettes, and that's changed it completely from the way I used to do, almost totally oriented towards history. And now I do fine art shows and with my silhouettes too. I probably will continue to do silhouettes as long as I'm able to see. I have a website where you can find out information about my art, see my art, and find out where I'm going to be. www.joyceyarbrough.com